That's reality.
Okay,
Mishnah,
we're on Perek Yud Mishnah Vav.
this is reality. Mishnah is reality.
This is the reality. Yeah.
If a bow developed a hole and the sediments blocked it, if they have protected it, if they have protected it, if one plugged the hole with a vine, it does not protect until one plasters the sides. If there were two vines, they do not protect until one plasters both sides and between one vine and the other. Regarding a board that was placed over the mouth of an oven, if one plastered the sides, it protects. If there were two boards, they do not protect until one plasters the sides and between one board and the other. If they join them with sinum or with shugman, that one does not apply plaster in the middle. When I was thinking about the two boards yesterday, I was saying we have two boards. If one board slides over a little bit,
Yes.
like, then there's a
But
lip over.
if they slot into each other, then
Right.
that's the case of the sinin or shugmin.
Otherwise they have that lip. They have it's a couple of so yeah. All right. So okay. An old oven which was in a new oven, and there was a cedra over the mouth of the oven. If the old oven is removed and the cedra would fall, then everything is tummy. But if not, everything is tahor. A new oven, which is a kli, which was an old oven, an ohel, and there was a cedra over the mouth of the old oven.
No, you got it the wrong way. You said a new oven, which is a kli. The new oven is dafka not the kli. The new oven forms the ohel, and the old oven is the kli.
Put it backwards. Oh my gosh! Here's my pencil.
Yeah. When you see new oven, you got to read ohel or potential ohel, and old oven is a kli.
I put it backwards.
Yeah.
Okay. Kli. So I write down these notes when saying things, and very good. Okay, kli. Okay, old oven is the kli. All right, there we go. There was a cedra over the mouth of the old oven. If there is less than a handbreadth between the new oven and the cedra, then everything within the new oven is tahu. Regarding stew pots placed one within the other and the brims are even, the sheretz is in the upper. If the sheretz is in the upper lowest stew pot, is tummy and the rest is tahor. If pots were perforated to the extent that they would that liquid would enter, the sheretz is if the sheretz is in the upper pot, all the pots are tummy. If the sheretz was in the lower pot, it is tummy, and all the other pots are tahor. If the sheretz is in the upper pot and the lower pot extends above it, and the lower pot is tummy. If the sheretz is in the upper pot and the lower one extends over it, then any pot that contains enough beverage is moistened it is tummy. Okay.
Hey. All right, Perek Yud Aleph. Now we move on to metal utensils. Okay, and the first Mishnah gives us a fundamental change in metal utensils as opposed to all the others. Because a metal kli doesn't need to have a receptacle. Even something straight, flat, like a knife, can become tameh. Okay, as long as it's called a kli, a metal kli can become tameh. Like all other Keilim, nishberu taharu. If they got broken, then they become tahor. Okay. Chazar v'asamehen Keilim. If he took the broken pieces and made them back into Keilim, chazru l'tumas hanayishana. Now this is a big chedesh over here. That if they were tameh and they broke, and he fixed them into a new kli, right, they return to their original tumah. Okay. Now why is that? So this is actually there is actually a three-way dispute. We'll among in the Gemara. Okay, so first of all, the fundamental thing that everyone agrees on is that Mina Torah, they lose their tumah. Once they're broken, they lose their tumah. That's it; it's gone. Even if you repair them, Mina Torah, they're still tahor. But Chazal made a gezerah on these pieces in order that they should return to their original tumah if you fix them. Okay, and the reasons for that are the subject of dispute. So one opinion says that the reason is because hold on. Firstly in the Mishnah there's a machlokas which we're going to see now. Let me just read the next line. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel omer lo lechol tuma ela letumas hanefesh. He says that this gezerah only applies to tumas mace. Okay, but not to like if it became tameh with a sheretz. Okay, that the original tumah doesn't return. So the different reasons are as follows. According to the Tanna Kamma, the reason why the reason why it becomes tamei again is because just see just remind myself, what is it? Because because you might come to a confusion between things that were broken and restored, as opposed to something that actually went to mikveh. Okay, because something that let's just say you got something that was tamei from a sheretz, okay, and you took that. If you take that to mikveh, dunk it, take it out, it's tahor, but it's still got the status of a tuvul yom, which means that you cannot use it for truma. Okay, it'll passel truma. Okay, because the tuvul yom has still got the status of a sheni.
Right.
Okay, which means that the truma will become passel from touching it. Okay, but if something is broken and then restored, then it becomes tahor immediately. So the Tanna Kama is concerned that if you allow people to break the kli and restore it, they'll get confused and say, oh, look, this one became tahor immediately. So the same thing if I take it to the mikveh. If I take it to the mikveh and take it out, it'll become immediately mutar to use even before sunset. Okay, so that's the Tanna Kama. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says that's not the reason. The reason why we have this gezerah is because of tumas meis, only because of tumas meis, because like people aren't going to break their Keilim just so that they can fix them if all they need to do is take it to mikveh and wait until the evening. That's a much. What's the bigger tircha? Taking it to mikveh and waiting, or breaking it and fixing it? But when you've got a 7-day tumah and you've got to say, oh, I've got to go through the paraduma, I've got to get it sprinkled, and on the 3rd day and on the 7th day, I'd rather just break it and fix it, and then it'll be tahor immediately instead of going through all this schlep of the paraduma stuff. So he says that's a big problem because now people are going to stop even doing the paraduma stuff. They're just going to break their Keilim and fix them because it's too much of a drag to do the whole Tara process, and then they're going to forget the halach of the paraduma stuff. Okay. And the third reason that's not given in the Mishnah but is given in the Gemara is that there's another Tana who is concerned that the original breaking that's going to remove the tumah might not be done thoroughly enough to remove the shem kli. Like, not everyone's expert in saying, okay, it's completely broken and it's no longer a kli, because there are lots of subtleties, like how broken does it have to be to lose the shem kli?
Right.
Okay, so you're going to come to all these mistakes, and you think it's tahor, and really it's still tamei. So they said about the metal Keilim, it always returns to its original tumah. We're going to see an nafkamina soon. Okay. So Mishnah base, kol kli matechos sheyesh lo shem bifnei atzmo tamei. So a metal kli that has an independent name. Now, this, by the way, is talking specifically about flat Keilim, not Keilim that have a receptacle. Keilim that have a receptacle will always become tamei in their own right. But what we're talking about is if it's got an independent name, like a knife. Knife is a knife, right? That you just have one word, it's called a knife, and that can become tamei. Okay, but what the Mishnah is coming to exclude is something like a kaneh. Okay, a kaneh is a branch. So a branch of a menorah. Okay, so a branch of a menorah is all it is it's a branch that let's say you've got a modular menorah that you break down and assemble into a piece. So when it's assembled as a menorah, that is makabel tumah. Okay, it's a kli. The whole thing is a menorah, but if you've got a kaneh menorah, let's say you disassembled it, and now all you've got is a branch over here. That branch is tahor. Okay, because it's kaneh menorah, it's not as distinct from a kaneh of something else. So when it's got that adjunct name, then it's not an independent name, and it is, and that's your rule of what little pieces of metal can become tamei or not. So that's what this Mishnah is starting off with. So if it's got its own name, it can be tamei. Chutz mean, except for the following exceptions, right? Okay, a deles, a door. Okay, a neger is the bar, the door bolt. I mean, a man'ul, the lock. A posach, the socket under the pivot. So yeah, you can see the diagram on page 485. All the different parts of the door. You can see there's the door bolt at the bottom and the clustra, the knob, and all these pieces are nicely drawn out for us. Hatzir, the pivot, a kora, the beam, hatzinor. Okay, all these parts without getting too much into the diagram of it, but the fundamental thing that ties them together, shenasu lekarka, because all of these things, even though right now they're detached from the ground, their purpose in life is to be attached to the ground. Right? Anything that's like the whole house is attached to the ground, the door is attached into the house, so the door is impervious to tumah, even if it's made of metal.
What does that mean, though? If it becomes tamei, the socket or the.
Well, it doesn't become tamei. That's the point. Is that even if it's detached, you take it out of the house, you've got a socket over here, okay, and it hasn't yet been installed. Even if it comes into an ohel hameis, it remains tahor because its whole purpose in life is to be attached to the ground, and being that that's its purpose is being attached to the ground, it is impervious to tumah.
Is that true for the bolt, the door bolt?
Well, all of these things that are listed in the Mishna over here, they're all parts of the door that is attached to the house. Therefore, there's no tumah that can attach to them.
The same as the branch that you were talking about.
Right, like the branch that's been detached from the menorah. When the branch is attached to the menorah and you now have a unit called the menorah, that can become tamei.
Okay. All right.
Now, ha'oseh keilim mina eshes. So, one who makes utensils from iron ore. Okay, so this just background to this over here is that we're returning to our first Mishnah, which is talking about tumah returning to a kli that was made out of metal. Okay, so if it was original, everyone agrees that if you know that the original material was metal or it was tamei, and it got broken down and it got reformed, it returns to tumah. Nobody's arguing on that point. They might argue on the reasons why, but the fundamental rule is that it returns to its original tumah. Now, the question that we have is when there's some kind of doubt as to whether the original material was tamei or not. So what we're mentioning over here is that the first part of our Mishnah is talking about the things that there's no doubt. We can assume that whatever material that all these materials that we're making things out of was for sure tahor. So, for example, mina eshes from iron ore. That ore could not have been tamei because it wasn't a kli before. It was just raw metal. Okay, or mina charara, or from a metal ingot. Okay, it's not a kli. It's just a way of storing the metal before it's ready to be used. Okay, so that for sure is gonna be tahor. Okay, so by the way, up until now, when we've been talking about tahor tamei, we've been talking about the potential, the susceptibility to tumah. Okay, now we're talking about actual tumah. Is there a possibility that it actually was tamei and now it's restoring to its original tumah? So let's just make sure that we don't get confused over here when we talk about what's tamei and what's tahor. We're talking about from this point, we're talking about literally, is it tamei or is it tahor, as opposed to is it susceptible?
Okay.
Because for sure it's susceptible. Okay. Minasovev shalagalgal. Okay. The hoop of a wheel is it's a metal reinforcement around the wheel that's holding it together. So being that it's secondary to the wheel, it does not receive tumah. So that you don't have to worry, it became tamei. It didn't. All right. Minatasin. Okay. So plating, again, the plating is secondary to whatever it was plating. I mean, that's tzipuin from the tassin is sheet metal and tzipuim is plating. So all of these things were not Keilim in their own right before, could not have been tamei. Mikane Keilim, from the bases of utensils. Okay. Just a second, I want to see if there's something else. There was a point here, base of utensils. So the base in which utensil, although a utensil in its own right is not susceptible to tumah because it functions as an accessory to a different utensil, utensils that directly serve a person are susceptible to tumah, not utensils that are designed to serve other utensils. Okay, so even though it is a form of a kli, but it's a kli that serves another kli, so therefore it doesn't have a tumah in its own right. Uma ogne keilim. Keilim, right? So that's the rims of the utensil. So if there's a detachable metal rim, again, it has the status of an independent utensil, but is not susceptible to tumah because its purpose is to serve another utensil. Okay, me'oznei Keilim, the handles of the utensils. Okay, and again, so the Mishnah is referring to a case in which a new utensil was made out of the metal handles of another utensil. So as with all the cases mentioned so far, the Mishnah will later state that the new utensil formed is tahor, i.e. it's not subject to the rabbinic decree that it restores former tumah. Okay, so now there's a potential problem that Rosh raises over here. You can see in the footnote on 490. Unlike the preceding cases in the Mishnah, such as the wheel hoop, the handles of utensils are in fact susceptible to tumah, as we'll see in, right, you'll see that in Chulin. Okay, how can the Mishnah rule that utensils made from handles are never subject to the decree that restores former tumah? If the handles had been tamei, then the utensil formed from them should reacquire that tumah. So Rosh suggests that since the restoration of former tumah is only a rabbinic decree, Chazal were lenient on this in this case and replied it only to a utensil made from the main body of a tamei utensil, but not to utensils solely made from the tamei utensil's handles. Alternatively, the Mishnah refers to handles that were made separately from the main body of the utensil and were never actually attached as intended. Okay, and since an unattached handle is itself not a utensil, then these handles were never susceptible to tumah in the first place.
Once these items, the handle, I mean, not him, it can't be. When these items become tamei, we can't use them until we restore them back to a tahor state. Am I correct?
Well, I mean, when you're saying you can't use them, you can use them. It's just that they're tamei. You can use them for chulin, which
Right.
I mean, all of our keilim are tamei.
Right, right. But we're in a different state than they were then, so it's
Yeah. So, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with tumah. You just got to be aware that something is tamei because because tumah is fine for a day-to-day life. Okay, but you have to be very tumah conscious when you're dealing with kochim and with truma and with maaseh sheni.
Right.
These things have to be tahor to eat them. Now we're not in the parasha of talking about truma. Like we would be in the parasha of truma, by the way. There's no reason why a kohen can't eat truma except for the fact that he's tamei.
Yeah.
Which is why when we take challah and we take truma off our fruits and vegetables, we should really give it to a kohen. But the kohen can't do anything with it except feed it to his animals. That he could do. So if you know a kohen who's got a rabbit or something like that, and you're taking maser off some vegetables, you can give it to your friend, to your local kohen, and he can you can take the truma to give it to the kohen, and he can feed it to his animal.
Okay. All right. I'm going to find
okay, but that's
I'm going to find all the Kohanim I know that have animal pets, you know.
So the dinim of truma still apply nowadays, which and the reason why they can't eat it is because everyone's tamei.
Right.
Okay.
They can't become tahor unless they have paraduma, so it doesn't.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay.
The
examples we got, from scraps, grudos, filings, all of these things are not susceptible to tumah in the first place. Now, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri comes and adds another chiddush, af min ha-ketzotzos, even utensils made from cut pieces. Okay, so now he is coming and adding a chiddush over here, which shows he has taken a position regarding that machlokes in Mishnah Aleph. Remember, we said that there were three different reasons why we have the gezerah.
Right.
So Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri is coming and saying that a cut-up utensil is not subject to this rabbinic decree that restores things. So the basis, he obviously maintains that the basis for the decree is the rabbi's concern that a person wishing to purify a utensil by breaking and then repairing it might fail to make a hole large enough to render the utensil tahor. Okay, since this concern about inadequate breakage does not exist when a tamei utensil is thoroughly cut up into pieces, Chazal didn't apply their decree to a utensil made from such pieces. So you see over here, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri represents that third opinion that we mentioned. So then in Mishnah Aleph, there's the Tanakama, there's Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, and now in Mishnah Gimel, we've got Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri coming and giving the third opinion of why you have this gezerah. Okay, so Mishivrei Keilim, we carry on utensils made mishibre Keilim, from pieces of broken utensils, mina grutim, from fragments, mina masmiros sheyadua shenasu mekeilim tamein. All these cases, pieces of broken utensil, from fragments, or from nails that were known to have been made from other utensils, these we must assume are tame, and we've got to take precautions that they shouldn't that they might have come from a kli that was already tame, and therefore we have to treat them as tame. However, if you took some nails and melted them down, you didn't know where they came from. Stam nails. The previous case we gave of nails was nails that we know had been made from recycled other materials. Now we're talking about nails stam. We don't know where they came from. Beis Shammai is machmir. They metame because they fear that this might have come from other Keilim, and those other Keilim might have been tame. Beis Hillel and the Tarian say this is a faker. It's a suffix if they came from other materials, and even if they did come from other materials, maybe those other materials were tahor.
Right. Okay.
So Beis Hillel will let them tahor, and that is the halacha. Okay. We can now move on to Ches Daled.
Regarding a pot that was placed in an oven, if a sheretz is in the oven, the pot is tahor. For an earthenware utensils is not rendered utensils tamei. If there was in a pot sufficient, if there was in the pot the beverage sufficient to moisten, the beverage becomes tamei and the transmitted tumah. Thus, this pot says that which you made tamei did not make me tamei, and that yet you have made me tamei. Regarding a chicken that swallowed a sheretz and then fell into the airspace of the oven is tahor, but the chicken died. If the chicken died, it's tahor, tamei. If a sheretz was out in the oven, the bread that is in the oven becomes a sheni l'tumah, for the oven is shining a level of tumah. Regarding a leaven, a container that is surrounded by a sealed cover and placed into an oven, if leaven and a sheretz are in it and the dividing wall is between them, the oven is tamei, but the leaven is tahor. And if there was an olive vine piece from the corpse, the oven and everything in the house is tamei, but the leaven is tahor, and if there's an opening of one tefach, everything is tamei.
Yeah. Midos Beis Daled.
All the walls that were there were very high, except for the eastern wall. So if the Kohen burned the power duma, would stand atop the Mount of Olives and direct his gaze through the hekel, entrance at the time of the sprinkling of the blood. The women's courtyard was 135 amos in length and 135 amos in width, and there were 4 chambers at its corners, each with a length of 40 amos. These chambers were not roofed, and that is how they are destined to be. For it is stated, the angel brought me into the outer courtyard and led me past the 4 corners of the courtyard. And behold, an enclosure at one corner of the courtyard, an enclosure at another corner of the courtyard. At the 4 corners of the courtyard were enclosures that were keturas. And the term keturas denotes nothing other than the fact that they were unroofed. And what were the functions? The southeastern chamber, there was a chamber of the Nazirim, where there the Nazirim would cook their shlomin offerings and would shave their hair and cast the shon hair beneath its cauldron. The northeastern corner was where the chamber of the wool, for where the Kohen would physically blemish, would sort out the worm-borne pieces of wool, and any piece of wood which is in a worm was found, which is qualified as being used on the altar. The northwest chamber, it was the chamber of the Mitzorim. Regarding the southwestern chamber, Reb Eliezer ben Yaakov said, I forgot what function it served. Abba Shaul says they were used to place wine and oil there, and it was called the chamber of housing of the oils. It was really smooth, and they were surrounded with a balcony so that the women should watch from above and the men from below, so that they could not be mingled. And 15 steps ascended from within the women's courtyard to the Israelite courtyard, responding to the 15 songs of ascents that were found in the Psalm. For upon these steps, the leaving was on a song, and the 15 steps were not straight, rather they were rounded like half a circle of threshing 4. That's right. Okay.
One more. Yeah.
And there were chambers beneath the Israelites' courtyards which were open to the women's courtyard. There were Levim that would place harps, lyres, and cymbals, and all other musical instruments. The Israelites' courtyard was 135 amos in length and 11 amos in width. And similarly, the Kohen's courtyard was 135 amos in length by 7 amos in width, and the ends of the beam separated there between the Israelites' courtyard and the Kohen's courtyard. Where Eliezer ben Yaakov said there was a step there, 1 amma high, and the platform rested upon it, and in the platform there were 3 steps, each with a height of half an amma. It is found that the Kohen's courtyard is higher than the Israelites' courtyard by 2.5 amos. The entire courtyard was 187 amos in length and 137 amos in width, and there were 13 prostrations there. Abba Yosef ben Hanan says, corresponding to the 13 gateways of the courtyard, the southern gateways adjacent to the west, the up gate, the kindling gate, the gate of the firstborns, and the water gate. And why is its name called the water gate? Because it is through there that we bring the flask of water for libations or Sukkot. And Reb Eliezer ben Yaakov says, and because there were streams of water, it as wide as which issues from a flask, and the future will emerge from underneath the threshold of the temple. And opposite the southern gate, ways in the north, adjacent to the west, the gate of the Kodesh, the gate of the offering, the women's gate, the gate of the song. And why was it called the gate of the Kodesh? Because through it, Yekonia, exactly the courtyard were the exiled, and it was east in the east of the Nicanor Gate, and the Nicanor Gate had two minor doorways, one to the right, one to the left, and there were two gateways to the west that did not have any name. Okay.
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 Next up is Bechoros Vestes.
An animal born by cesarean section and says both must be left to pasture until they develop blemishes, and they may be eaten with their blemish by their owner. Rabbi Kiva says neither one is a Bekora, the first because it was open the womb, and the second because it was preceded by another. If one buys an animal from a non-Jew and it is not known whether it is first offspring or not, Rabbi Ishmael says the offspring of a goat in its first year similarly belongs to a Kohen. From there it is questionable. The offspring of a ewe in the second year certainly belongs to the Kohen. From here it is unquestionable. The offspring of a cow or donkey in its third year certainly belongs to the Kohen. From here on it is questionable. If offspring alone would exempt the animal, it would be as you say, but they said the sign of offspring in small livestock is a womb discharge in an amniotic sac, and in a woman, an embryo on an amniotic sac. This is the rule. With any animal known to have previously born its first, the Kohen receives nothing, and with any one that has not born its first, the first male offspring belongs to the Kohen. If it is questionable, may be eaten in the blemished state by the owner. If Eliezer and Yaakov says if a large livestock animal discharges a massive congealed blood, it must be buried and exempt from the laws of the core. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says if one buys a nursing animal from a non-Jew, he need not expect that it was the other animal. If he entered among his flock and saw that those that had just been born for the first were nursing, and that those that had previously given birth were nursing as well, he need not suspect that the offspring of this one came to that one, or that offspring of that one came to this one. Okay?
Okay. Baba Basra.
Okay. If a house collapsed upon a man and his mother, all agree that they should divide. So Rabbi Akiva agree in this case that the possessions retain their status. And Rabbi said Ben Azai to him, on the disputed issues we are pained, and you come into dispute the unanimous. An open document has its witnesses on the inside, a bound document has the witness on the outside. Upon an open one whose witness is brought on the outside and a bound one whose witness is brought on the inside are both invalid. When Kanina ben Gamliel says bound one whose witness is brought on the inside is valid because he can make it open and open a one. Now we're going to Gamliel says all in accord with the custom of the land. An open document requires two witnesses and a bound one three. An open one in which the witness is signed and a bound one in which two witnesses are signed are both invalid. If he wrote 100 zuzim, which he have 20 sellers, he receives only 20 sellers. If he wrote 100 zuzim, which are 30 sellers, he receives only a man. If it's stated silver zuzim, which are and the rest were erased, it is not less than 2 zuzim. Silver psalms, which are and the rest were erased, it is not less than 2 sellers. Darkens, which are and the rest were erased, it is not less than 2 darkons. If above was written 100 zuzim and below 200 zuzim, for above 200 and below 100, everything follows the bottom statement. If so, why is the top written so that one letter from the bottom should be erased, which is derived from the top? Okay. We have Yoma. Zion. He came to the ox and the he-goat which were to be burned. He tore them and removed their sacrificial parts. He put them in an open plate out of altar. He intertwined the limbs of the ox and the he-goat into twists and removed them at the place of burning. And from when do these people contaminate clothing? From when they go outside the wall of the courtyard. And Shimon said, when the fire catches onto the greater part of the limbs. They said to the Kohen Gadol, the he-goat has reached the wilderness. And how did he know that the he-goat had reached the wilderness? They set up watch posts and swayed cloths, and thus they knew that the he-goat had reached the wilderness. And Yehuda said, They had a dependable signal from Yerushalayim to the place where the he-goat's sharp peak was 3 mil. They walked the mill, returned the mill, and tarried for the time needed to walk a mill. Thus, they knew that the he-goat had reached the wilderness. And Ishmael says, but did they not have another sign? A strip of red wool was on top of the temple's entrance, and when the he-goat reached the wilderness, the strip of wool whitened, as it had been said, even if your sins will be crimson, like crimson said, they will become white as wool. Kohen Gadol came to read. If he wished to read wearing his linen vestments, he may read, and if not, he would read while wearing his own white robe. The attendant of the synagogue takes the Torah scroll and gives it to the head of the synagogue. The head of the synagogue gives it to the deputy Kohen Gadol, and the deputy gives it to the Kohen Gadol. Kohen Gadol stands up, accepts the scroll, and reads from while standing. He reads from Akamos, the portion that begins with on the 10th. Then he rolls up the Torah scroll, puts it in his bosom, and says, more that I have read to you is written here, and he recites by heart the book of Numbers beginning on the 10th. Then he recites over 8 benedictions for the Torah, for the sacrificial service, for the thanksgiving, for the offering of the sins, for the temple separately, for the Israel separately, for Yerushalayim separately, and for the Kohen separately, and for the rest of the prayer.
Okay.
And
Uktzin.
Okay. Dalet. All peels contract tuma and convey tuma and combine. Rabbi Yehuda says there are 3 peels on an onion. The innermost peel, whether it's the whole or perforated, combine. The middle peel, if it's whole, it combines. But if it's perforated, it does not combine. And the outermost peel, it's either case is tahor. Regarding when it cuts the food in order to cook it, even though it is not completed to cut, it is not a connection. But if you cut it in order to preserve it or to overcook it, or to place it on the table, it is considered a connection. He began to separate the sections. The food with which he began to separate is not considered a connection. Regarding walnuts, one has braided together, and the onions that he bunched together, these are the connections. If he began to take apart, in the case of walnuts, and peel them, in the case of onions, it is not a connection. The shells of walnuts and almonds are a connection until one crushes them. The shell of a slightly roasted egg is a connection until one cuts it, but the shell of an overcooked egg is in a connection until he crushes it. The bone that is marrow in it has a connection until one crushes it. The peel of a pomegranate that once separated is a connection until he beats on it with a stick. Similarly, the basting of laundries and the garments that is sewn with Keilim is connection until he begins to undo it.
And we're done. And I'm going to run.
Okay, have a great day. Thank you. I'll see you tomorrow.
Cheers.